Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome to my booktube channel. I thought as a way to get to know me, we could start by talking through my favourite books of the year so far and get to know each other's reading tastes a bit better. So I have 8 books here that I've really enjoyed this year, and I thought I'd just talk you through them, starting with the ones that I read in January, working my way through now to August. So the very first book that I actually read this year was Starsight by Brandon Sanderson, and this is the continuation from Skyward. This is a young adult sci-fi series which takes place on a planet where the humans are being attacked by this alien force. And we follow our main character called Spencer, and all her life she's been told that her dad is a coward for the way that he fought in the war against the aliens. So this means that she is unable to become a space pilot, which is ultimately her dream. So this is the continuation from that first book, where you're following Spencer and the characters that she meets along the way in the first book. I really love the characters in this. I think Brandon Sanderson has done a very good job bringing the characters to life, all with very different personalities. In this book specifically, you start following other alien races, and I find it very interesting the way he has brought in different species and the way that those species interact with each other, and how their different cultures sometimes don't exactly mesh very well together, but they have tried to create a society where everyone flourishes in a way. But yes, that was the first book. Secondly, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I read The Night Circus by her many years ago when it first was published and absolutely loved it. So when I heard that she was coming out with a second book, I was overjoyed. So this book follows a young boy. He's in university, and he's in the library and he finds a book, and it's got lots of short stories that he's very intrigued by, and then he gets to one short story and it's actually a moment from his life, and he doesn't understand how his life has ended up in a book that was published before he was even born. And so it follows him trying to figure this out and finding things out about himself and the world, and he sort of goes into this library, underground library, where there's so much going on. It was very whimsical, and it is a very character-driven book. There isn't loads of plot, but the characters just completely make this book, in my opinion. I found the writing very engaging. It's beautifully written. It's absolutely lovely to read. In March, I was able to read Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I absolutely love Sarah J. Maas. I know it's a bit of a controversial opinion nowadays, but I've loved all of her books. She was one of the authors that got me back into reading back in 2014 after a few years out during school and university. And so I've read all of her published works. So Crescent City, this is set in a world where it's an urban fantasy where all magical beings are around. Vampires, angels, fairies, werewolves, every magical being is in this book, and it's a very modern setting. It follows Bryce, and at the beginning of the book, a guy that she put in jail has been released, and then it jumps forward 2 years where we are following Bryce, and she's trying to figure out a crime. And to help her with this crime, the chief of the city has appointed a fallen angel to work with her called Hunt. And at first they don't get along at all, but eventually their relationship blossoms, I really enjoyed this book. I found that although it was a bit confusing to begin with because it's a whole new world and a whole new setup, I really enjoyed the characters. I liked the way that different mental health issues were addressed in this book, and then the second half was very fast paced and very engaging and had the standard Sarah J Maas plot twist at the end. The next book that I really liked was The Dragon Republic. This is the sequel to The Poppy War. This book, to avoid spoilers for the first book follows Rin, and it's set in like a fantasy China during, I'm not sure what century, but back when there was wars going on. So you're following Rin, who is from the south, and she is classed as a peasant, and to avoid going into an arranged marriage, she studies really, really hard for a test to get into this military school. And so she gets into this military school where she's going to train to become part of the army, and it has the whole school setting. You're following Rin as she goes through the school, and then it feels as though there's a tone shift in the book, and it moves on from the school with the approach of war. What I really liked about this book, this being the second one, is the characters. None of the characters are necessarily good. They're all, you don't quite know who is good and who is bad, really. They're all very grey with the good and the evil, and it's interesting to examine it and see who you're rooting for, because although you're reading it from Rin's point of view, you can tell that she's not always a good person, and in some ways, because you're hearing her thoughts, you want her to excel, but on the other hand, you don't necessarily know if what she's fighting for is the best cause. So yes, it's very well written. I think R.F. Kuang has written a great series here, and I'm very looking forward to the third book in the series, The Burning God, which comes out in November. So it was slightly different, as it's not a fantasy, which is my normal genre. I really enjoyed Am Pilgrim. This is one of my boyfriend's favourite books. I think he's read this 4 or 5 times, and he's not much of a reader. So this is a thriller, I guess sort of James Bondish kind of character. He works in the government for a secret organisation, and throughout the book you're following different moments which don't appear to overlap, but do. So it starts off saying, a young woman murdered in a run-down Manhattan hotel. A father publicly beheaded in blistering sun of Saudi Arabia. A man's eyes stolen from his living body as he leaves a secret Syrian research laboratory. Smouldering human remains on the mountainside in the Hindu Kush. A plot to commit an appalling crime against humanity. One thread that binds them all, one man to take the journey, Pilgrim. So Pilgrim is the detective that we're following. And I find it was very compelling read. I wanted to know how it was all going to fit together, because he's pursuing different, they appear to be different crimes, but actually in the end all the plots tied together. It's set in all different parts of the world. I don't really know what else to say. Okay, we're getting to the end now. So the next book that I read was The Empire of Gold. This is the third and final book in the David Bad City of Brass trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. This whole series is magical, in my opinion. So this series follows 3 main characters, Nari, Dara and Ali. It starts off with Nari in Cairo, Egypt, back in the 1800s maybe, and she is a healer con artist, so she'll be seeing people and giving them not necessarily the right advice for whatever ailments they have, or making sure that they spend money with her, and doing fake ceremonies to get rid of different jinn in people's heads and stuff. So at the first book, one of the ceremonies that she does goes wrong, and she ends up calling a warrior jinn to her, as well as some people that want to kill her. So this warrior jinn finds her, and they end up travelling for thousands of miles to the magical city of Daevabad. And in Daevabad, it is a city of different factions. So there's the different families of jinn or that rule, and there's lots of tension between those families, and also the half human, half jinn population. So Nari is entered into this very tense political situation. The other protagonist we have is Ali, and Ali is the son of the king in this city. So it's really interesting how you have Nari's perspective, which is completely new to this world as a we, and then we have Ali, who has been brought up with it and knows what's going on and is teaching her and teaching us what's going on in the world. It's a very political fantasy. I, in the end, just absolutely loved the world and the way it's all set up. This concluding novel was so well paced. It felt like you started off, and there was always something going on. Like, there was never a dull moment, but it wasn't always like go go go. I just really gelled with it. You know, that you get that feeling when you're reading a book and you just don't want to put it down, and it felt like it spoke to me. I loved the characters. I didn't want to let them go, and I loved the way it all concluded. And then finally, the last book that I'm going to talk about today is Valor. Oh, this one feels much lighter than the other ones. So this is the second book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, the first one being Malice. This is an epic fantasy written by John Gwynne. It is set in a world where there are humans and giants, and they're battling for control of the land. There's a prophecy in this fantasy which says that there will be a bright sun and the bright star and the black sun, and they will battle for the land, and they will be the pawns of the gods. This is the second book in this series. The first book I also really enjoyed. I found that this one took it up a notch from the first book. The first book I gave 4.5 stars. This one was a full 5 stars. I found that with the first book there was some issues with getting to know the characters. It felt like you were very much just thrown into the world, whereas now in the second book we know who the characters are, we've got to grips with the world, we know what's going on, and so you're just very much immersed in the characters and their lives and what's happening. Again, I found this to be very well paced, and I was really rooting for the characters, and some moments were so sad and gripping, and the ending has quite a big cliffhanger, so I definitely need to continue on in the second half of this year with the third and the fourth book. So those are the 8 books that are my favourites so far for this year. I hope you've all really enjoyed this video. Let me know what your favourite books that you've read so far this year are, and please like, comment and subscribe. Bye!